Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jeremy Schumacher. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm the Jer in Wellness with Jer. Thanks for stopping by and checking out the channel. I would love to tell you we have a light topic today, but we're going to talk about Hulk Hogan at the Republican National Convention. The RNC has fallen quickly out of the news as Joe Biden announced he would not be seeking re-election. So the news media has moved on, but I'm a huge pro wrestling fan, so I wanted to touch base on why Hulk, who I don't know, has been held responsible for his actions and fired from a pretty terrible company multiple times because his actions were so reprehensible. Why Hulk Hogan is endorsing Donald Trump and why that makes perfect sense and also doesn't help Donald Trump at all. So, uh, these are peas of in a pod. Orange skin, terrible hair. Both of them don't know how to walk like regular human beings anymore. That's a little bit mean. We'll talk about why Hulk Hogan walks the way he walks. They're both anti-union. They both have allegedly said the N-word on tape. We've seen Hulk Hogan's tape where he repeatedly uses the N-word. That is when he was fired from WWE for the first time, out of a strong, aggressive fear that his daughter would date a black guy. But he doesn't say black guy. And he uses it repeatedly in that video. He also uses the N-word repeatedly in the video talking to his son, who was in jail for killing someone in a drunk driving accident. Don't quote me on that. I did not look up the Nick Hogan stuff, but I believe there was substance use. I don't know if he killed someone, I guess. I know he was operating under the influence. But no, Hulk Hogan is not a good person. Iron Sheik will tell you that. Pro wrestlers know Iron Sheik famously hates Hulk Hogan. He posted just recently, the other day, about how Hulk Hogan is the worst, and he wished good and peace to everyone except for that jabroni Hulk Hogan. Hogan's a piece of work. You have to understand the career overlap that Donald Trump and Hulk Hogan have. Really, pro wrestling is a carny business. So carny in the sense of traveling carnivals and going around to town, finding marks, which the language they use. A mark is somebody who you find in the crowd who seems susceptible to what you are selling, and you get them to spend their money on whatever it is you're doing. So the pro wrestling world comes from this carny business. Hulk Hogan came up in that. He was inspired by superstar Billy Graham, who is kind of this larger than life figure, and an avid promoter of steroids. And Hulk is buddy with Vince McMahon, another rich white guy who abuses women and uses the N-word. Gosh, these are just all awful people. It's really hard, part of the problem with being a pro wrestling fan is all of these awful figures that are in the wrestling world. And I'd like to say it is better now, and I think it truly is. But Hulk Hogan is still the number one most recognized name when it comes to pro wrestling. I think Ric Flair is maybe up there, maybe The Rock. But more people know him as Dwayne Johnson now than knew him as The Rock. And I don't know. He's also gone off the deep end a little bit, thinking his most recent run with WWE is the greatest villain story of all time. I don't know. It's hard to judge these people on the things they're saying because are they saying it in character or are they just awful humans? And Hulk Hogan's been around long enough. He's old at this point and been around long enough where we know he's a terrible human. Hogan very famously choked out a newscaster on live TV and knew that he choked him out, dropped him on his face, and caused a traumatic brain injury. Hogan was just not a good person. He came from a bodybuilding background and owned some failed businesses. He played bass for a while. I didn't know that until very recently that he actually started as a musician, got into bodybuilding, and joined pro wrestling. He was in and out with pro wrestling. He opened a gym for a while. So he's always kind of been like adjacent to bodybuilding, but in that era where steroids weren't illegal. And so it's always been bodybuilding, not through like what can the human body attain through hard work and discipline, but like how far can we cheat biology by putting steroids into our bodies. So lots of wrestlers have told stories about like the scar tissue Hulk Hogan has from injecting steroids so regularly, and some of this Hogan's terrible behavior and just being a bad person could, I guess, be explained by probably traumatic brain injuries continually by being in pro wrestling and steroid use. Like those things aren't good for people. We don't have a ton of information on Hogan's other drug use, but stereotyping a bit here. He's probably using in the 80s as everyone was. Most pro wrestlers were doing steroids at the time, and most pro wrestlers were also abusing um, cocaine because it was everywhere, and painkillers because their bodies were in such bad shape. And the WWF, now WWE, does not take care of their wrestlers' medical bills because they're independent contractors, not employees, which is nonsense. But Hulk Hogan is part of the reason why that's terrible. On my earlier sort of silly list, not really that funny. Uh, I don't know what to do in our modern political climate other than laugh at things. Hogan's famously anti-union. Jesse the Body Ventura, former governor of Minnesota, and I don't know, bit of a conspiracy nut, but otherwise kind of harmless. Seems like a genuinely good human. He did all right by Minnesota when he was the governor. Jesse the Body Ventura was a pro wrestler in WWF back in the day. He had organized the union for the wrestlers. They were all going to boycott WrestleMania 3 if they weren't going to get paid. Hogan got wind of this and sold them out to Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon, famous anti-employee rights, who is out of the WWE right now for sexually abusing and sexually trafficking a female employee. Really terrible human being. So Hogan went to Vince and said, "Hey, wrestlers are trying to unionize." Oh, Vince came in and threatened them all, basically, and no union. And no union to this day. AEW is a newer wrestling company, started in 2019, that tries to do better. Many of their wrestlers are employees, but I don't think all get it together, Tony Khan. Um, so again, wrestling's like just a problematic industry. Hogan came up at not a great time, but also worldwide fame because of when he came up. I mean, Hogan slamming Andre the Giant is probably one of the still one of the most iconic moments in pro wrestling, maybe the most iconic moment in pro wrestling, even if their match was garbage and we're well beyond where Andre was really quite good in the ring. Andre the Giant was legit very talented. And honest, I won't take away from Hogan. I mean, Bret Hart has said he's trash and doesn't know the difference between a headlock and a headlamp. But Hogan in his younger days, especially when he wrestled in Japan, did some cool stuff. I mean, I don't know that he's putting on 5-star matches back in the day, but the way that we've seen Hulk Hogan now, where he has chronic back pain, the steroid use has caught up with him. He's got like that weird steroid upper body. Probably skipped too many leg days. I'm not throwing shade at Hulk Hogan's body, but yeah, dude messed up his back doing that leg drop, which was his finisher over and over and over again. Also messed up Matt Hardy, who's another pro wrestler who's did the leg drop off the top rope for much of his career, who also can't really walk like a regular human being. So earlier when I was kind of pointing out that neither Trump nor Hogan walk normally, that was a little mean on Hogan's account. Hogan did get quite a big payday from suing a doctor for messing up his back. And again, I'm not throwing shade at getting uh, what you are owed from medical malpractice. Just in the context of Hulk Hogan's life, he has sued a lot of people and gone from bankruptcy to immense wealth multiple times by being very litigious in court. Big fan of Donald Trump for that reason. Trump has been in and out of court since the 80s, at least. His dad basically got wealthy by offering people really terrible loans and then kicking them out onto the street when they couldn't pay them off. So, you know, birds of a feather. Donald Trump also faced bankruptcy and got famous with The Apprentice reality TV, which I think across the board is really poor television. Like, but Jeremy, you like pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is fake, and everyone knows it's fake, and it's been fake for a long time, and it's scripted television. It's scripted live action sports entertainment. And like, it's cool. I like the NFL. I like the NBA. I like sports. Boxing is kind of boring sometimes. It goes 15 rounds and they're just covering up or in the ropes the whole time, where pro wrestling is always exciting. Some MMA fights are really boring. But wrestling's not. Wrestling's always exciting because it's scripted. It's live action, stuff can go wrong and things happen, but ultimately it is a story about a wrestling promotion. It is not a sport. So it's storytelling about a sport industry as opposed to anything else. So I don't really think of wrestling as reality TV. Lots of wrestlers have been involved in pretty terrible reality TV shows. Hulk Hogan famously had Hogan Knows Best, in which he was having his family on. Hogan sort of infamously, I think he still denies this to this day, but slept with his daughter's best friend or recording partner or something like that, like his daughter's aged person. Yuck. Also a Trump thing. Who? Yuck. Um, Yuck. These are terrible people. Why are they getting any spotlight? Um, so more just overlap. Like Trump has cheated on every wife he has. Trump has physically assaulted his wife. We could say rape. I think. I'm a small YouTube channel. I'm not expecting to get sued for this. Talking about two highly litigious people is not super fun though. Um, but like these are people who are misogynistic, they're anti-women, they are racist, and both of them saying the N-word allegedly on tape. Hogan's were released. Both of Hogan's tapes where he used the N-word repeatedly were released. And like there's a different if you're talking like that, you're using this language regularly. Hogan tries to say he grew up around it and it was regular in his Tampa upbringing, and his neighbors have been like, nah, no one said that. He's just a racist. So again, this isn't like virtue signaling or looking at, oh, in 2024, you can't be like that. Like people from Hogan's growing up years who know him from back in the day also talk about him being a racist. A lot of pro wrestlers came to his defense and kind of defended him. And a lot of pro wrestlers have also said, oh, there seems to be a pattern here. I don't know that the apology matters a ton. So I tend to kind of land in that later camp. I think Hogan has a pattern of abusive behaviors. Hogan refusing to put people over. Hogan not working well with people who are minorities. And like Hogan's, all right, there's no making sense of racism, but Hogan's like Panamanian and Italian. And like, yeah, he's got a really bad orange spray tan, but he's not like, I don't know. His parents were immigrants. Like the racism doesn't make sense. Like you came from somewhere. People used to think Italians weren't white enough to be white and American. Like racism doesn't make sense, but Hogan's racism seems really, I don't know, it's just like that bully mentality of like, don't notice my insecurities, don't pick on me. I'm going to point out everyone else's flaws so no one turns their ire against me. Like it's just that insecure bully stuff. But yeah, like Hogan seems weird cuz he really, I don't know, if you're thinking about like neo-Nazis, like he's not a Nazi, but like he also wouldn't be in that crowd because he's not European enough. I don't know. I don't understand Nazi logic either. But so it's just kind of bizarre and it comes from a really misinformed place. And he's been around enough BIPOC folks where he should be better about it. I don't know, pretty low bar to be like, don't be a racist. But like, this isn't even just microaggressions. When we talk about modern racism, very few people are like, we should bring lynchings back. Obviously, those people exist. They're right wing talking heads right now. Um, but for the most part, like, it's not overt racism anymore. It's these minor things. It's thinking that, people of color are less than or that they deserve the things that they have in life because you're unwilling to accept your own privilege. It is assuming that Black people are somehow deficient in intelligence or work ethic. It is having kind of like these stereotypes cranked up to 11 in that we think of with racism, but like using the N-word's racist. And so that's overt racism that Hogan has done multiple times throughout his career when he was recorded without knowing that he was being recorded. Also a couple of sex tapes. Dude's not great at knowing when he's being recorded or not. And part of his from bankruptcy into wealth was from suing Gawker for releasing one of those sex tapes. I believe he sued the individual and it ended up being the company had to pay for it. But he was pretty much destitute. I mean, he has had sort of a lavish lifestyle. He stays in character almost always to the point of like, is this Terry the dude? Or is this Hulk Hogan? And like, I don't know that he knows the difference anymore. So always kind of this larger than life figure, and that costs a lot of money. He's been divorced a couple times. That has cost him a lot of money because he cheated with his daughter's friend. Like, ugh, not great, dude. Um, so the fact that Donald Trump has drawn him, and Donald Trump is in the WWE Hall of Fame. Donald Trump was involved in a WrestleMania storyline where he got to shave Vince McMahon's head. Like, Vince McMahon is a terrible people. I don't have the time to do a full takedown of Vince McMahon. Behind the Bastards is a great podcast that talks about awful human beings. Henry Kissinger, awful human being, has 6 episodes. So does Vince McMahon. I think those are the top 2 longest episode or most episodes in that podcast's history. And again, the podcast is about history of horrible people. So Behind the Bastards has a full run of Vince McMahon up to like 2016 or 2017, probably. So Vince is even worse now because he's sex trafficking people and was abusing his employees and making them sign really restrictive NDAs, and also maybe has a poop fetish. It's pretty brutal stuff, and also racist. Some of the texts that came out with the sex abuse scandal that's going on right now are really horrific, not just the poop stuff, but that got a lot of the headlines because, I don't know, it's funnier to write about poop than it is to talk about people's really horrific racist sexual fantasies. So, ooh. But yeah, Vince is a bad dude. Linda McMahon, Vince McMahon's wife, who is notoriously cheated on throughout their marriage and also seems to not be a great person. She was in Donald Trump's cabinet in the Small Business Bureau, and or is for small business. And again, like, she was with Vince McMahon with the founding of the WWF and taking over his dad's company, which his dad worked. So, like, kind of born in that silver spoon, and then he just went super terrible and basically ruined pro wrestling as it existed in the 80s and made a giant conglomeration. So if you think about like Amazon and how terrible they are for getting people out of business, Walmart for getting people out of business and becoming this giant conglomeration, that's what Vince McMahon did with pro wrestling. He took all these smaller territories, bought them out, stole their wrestlers, and basically starved them for any talent until there didn't exist anything but the WWF, and then even going so far as buying the WCW. So, yeah, his only real competitor in the TV era of pro wrestling. He's not a good person, and he and Donald Trump are buddies to the point that Donald Trump put Linda McMahon into his cabinet in a position she had no business being in. So these are just awful people, and like, the fact that Hogan showed up at the RNC didn't surprise me at all. The supporters for Donald Trump skew old and evangelical white men. So, like, again, this idea of rugged individualism and good people get good things and bad people get bad things, like, that's all in there. But like, Hogan's a garbage human, so is Trump, and like, their business ideology is tax cuts for the rich and like, fuck unions. I wasn't gonna swear in this one. So close, I think. Um, but they're not good people. They're not caring about regular people. Hogan very famously lied about a Make-A-Wish kid, and again, so like, he understands publicity, and that gets back to the carny nature of pro wrestling that I think Trump has always gotten. Trump is an idiot, but Trump understands TV. Uh, I don't know that you can produce like 11, 12 years of a reality TV show and not understand, like, hey, that'll make a good outro. Hey, this is a catchy phrase. So both of them understand TV. Both of them, I think, are probably kind of dense. I guess I don't know how smart Hogan is in real life, but the average American has a 6th grade reading level and comprehension at that level. So short, easy, repeatable things, um, telling stories and narratives about the world being a safe place or a scary place. Like, pro wrestling is good guy versus bad guy. It's good versus evil in kind of the simplest terms that you can tell it. And it can transcend that, and it can be really good when pro wrestling is done well. It is great storytelling, but at its core, it's good versus evil. And will you pay money to see the good guy beat up the bad guy and see justice play out? And that's the story that's told. And so both of these awful human beings understand that they can be awful in real life and then go and try and tell this story. And so the fact that Hogan showed up and with no sense of irony, ripped a shirt that had the American flag on it in half to show a Trump shirt underneath it. I mean, you can't you can't make this stuff up to be more on the nose ironic than it is in real life. But it did not surprise me. I was downtown. I'm a Milwaukee native, so I was downtown last week, Thursday morning, which was the last day of the RNC. And again, like in the morning, not when events were going on, but like it was a ghost town. I've never been downtown where it has been that dead. People say it was like COVID. I didn't go out during COVID. I had a newborn, but it was one of those things where yeah, I have never seen fewer people downtown. I like parked far away from where I had to go. I was meeting with some local businesses for some community building stuff, and I parked kind of far away, and like I shouldn't have because there was so much parking. There's not that much amount parking on a regular day, so I don't think the RNC did much for Milwaukee. Milwaukee's a reliably blue city. All cities are blue, but Milwaukee is very blue. So I don't know why they had it here. Was a weird choice all around, but I think it was going to be not a net gain for Milwaukee from a business perspective. I saw about 80 cops, which again, you can't write the irony, but like not a lot of people out and about and total police state. Like, yeah, tax cuts for the rich and authoritarian police state. That's the Republican Party. No eye for irony or hypocrisy. F you, I got mine. And like that ultimately is kind of where we land with both Hulk Hogan and Donald Trump. It is no awareness on all the things that went their way, all the privilege they've had in life, taking shortcuts. Hogan is a bodybuilder who is super into steroids, all these things on not really doing the hard work and effort to get where they deserve, making most of their money off of suing people at this point in their lives that F you, I got mine, like pulling the ladder up after them and not helping people, not really caring about other people, just being egotistical assholes. So birds of a racist feather gonna flock together, I guess. Um, yeah, Trump and Hogan are very similar people. I've always sort of looked at Trump through that pro wrestling lens of like he's a carny. He doesn't have to be honest or try. He's just selling tickets. Like that's the idea. Who will believe this story that I sell, and can I get them to part with their money? So he's a con man, but like in that pro wrestling sense of that sort of carnival selling. Who are my marks? Who can I get them to part? How can I get these poor saps to part with their money when I don't need the money? I'm already rich. Yeah, in its worst way, that's pro wrestling, and that's Hulk Hogan and Donald Trump. So the fact that Hogan was at the RNC, I cancel culture is not a thing, but I didn't know Hogan was back in cultural graces. I guess the RNC is a pretty safe place to trot out a multi-time go away and stay away racist. Guess that's where they can come back and be accepted. Hogan's not even in the WWF anymore, WWE anymore. So I don't know. What a weird timeline we live in. I don't have a good wrap up. I should have ended on FU. I got mine. But yeah, why am I talking about this? Well, I'm a Milwaukee native and mental health professional, and I think mental health professionals are political. I think mental health is political. We have people passing laws with no training in mental health. We need to be able to speak up for these things. And F you, I got mine mentality harms people. Rich con men taking money from poor people and taking away their rights because they don't understand that they've never had to fight for any of their rights harms people. So working with the people, the marginalized communities that these policies that the Republican Party pushes harms, women, just all women are harmed by the Republican platform, and LGBTQ folks, BIPOC folks, like any marginalized community. And they're just not good humans. It's not something that if you care about humanity, you can support. This is fear mongering and greed. And that's all it is. So, ick. Not a fun topic. I'm gonna do some of these. I didn't title this video to be sad rich white dudes, but I got a whole thing on sad rich white dudes, which I think Hulk Hogan qualifies as. So check back for more of that. I don't understand how to do algorithm stuff. We'll continue doing song reviews. We'll keep doing movie and show reviews. I do have a couple videos I want to do. One more pro wrestler, a football player who was recently in the news. we got plenty of another football player. We got plenty of sad rich white dudes to talk about and talk about why their takes on cancel culture are totally wrong and how they haven't at all been canceled, nor have they really been held responsible for their actions. Hulk Hogan, sad rich white dude. All right, everybody, that's it. I'm Jeremy. Thanks for stopping by, checking out the channel. You can support the channel. We have Patreon, patreon.com/wellnesswithjer. You can follow me on social media at wellnesswithjer, or head over to my website, wellnesswithjer.com, to find more of my work. Take care of yourself. Take care of somebody else. Peace.